Hello, everyone. We are back, excited to jump back in with another edition here with the boys, the fellas, the men, Mark and Kevin.
Hey, yo.
My name is Juan, and you already know we like movies. Now,
Sometimes.
today's movie is one that I am very excited to talk about. It was my choice, and it is a movie everyone probably has heard of. There was quite a marketing campaign, but it is called Licorice Pizza, written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and starring Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim.
Is it Haim or
Haim,
Haim?
Haim,
Okay.
Haim. Um, this is a story set in the 70s. And it's basically a bit of a romance between the young man Gary and the young lady Elena, and just the intricacies of it all. I mean, it's hard to kind of go through the plot when there necessarily isn't a mm, beginning kind of thing that they're working toward resolving or anything like that. It's just kind of a will they, won't they, and the different circumstances and events that are surrounding them in this period of time. So it's very nostalgic, um, and quirky, kind of a romantic love story there. But that's kind of what I'll have to say. What I have to say about that. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add to that, or if you just one of you just wants to jump in with your first impressions.
You would go first. You picked.
Yeah.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I really liked it. Um, if we ignore uh, this this common theme, creepy Hollywood, and directors who want to continue to create these stories about underage.
Grooming.
Seriously, man. Um, but anyway, if we cast that aside, there's a lot to like. In my opinion, Paul Thomas reminds us once again, that he's just a master, um, and unique at that. As there's not many like him who write and direct, and who do it as well as he does. But yeah, I like the characters a lot. I like the things that happen in the story. Obviously, the shots and the direction and the music and the score and the cinematography, the color, like it all works. It's all really really good. For me, it just the ending felt a little flat, and that really is probably the only knock that I have on it. I could probably say maybe it might be a little bit too long also, but aside from that, for me, it was an excellent movie that I probably will watch again and again and again. So
All right, go for it, Kevin.
For me, all right. I'm not sure if you guys know this about me, but I don't like Hawaiian pizza. Right? Um, actually, I despise Hawaiian pizza. I despise the existence of it, and I feel like this name should have been called Hawaiian Pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever really rooted for them to be together. There are a couple of unlikable characters in a story that bounces here and there, but really leads nowhere to like just that end where she's like, "I love you." We've seen worse movies, but I don't think I've actively not liked characters like this movie.
mm,
Like she's 25, he's 15. I'm like, I was watching it. Almost everything was cringy. Of course, this would win awards and critical acclaim in Hollywood because, like Juan said, this is what Hollywood does. But I watch it like at no point did I want him like to win the girl because like she's a grown person. Even though she has her flaws, she's very like immature in some states. They were very toxic to each other. They were very possessive of each other. but not wanting to be with each other. There were some scenes where I felt like it just bounced around and went nowhere. Like, I'm not going to drive you. What do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll drive you. I'm like, all right, that was just a waste of my time to watch a 15-year-old and a 25-year-old have this argument. There are things I liked about it. I did like a lot of the direction. I thought a lot of it was like nice to look at. I like the scenes, the settings, all that stuff. And there was the dinner part where I think it was filmed very well. But ultimately, I did not like the story. Like, I think most of it fell flat with me. And again, we've had movies where I didn't feel anything connection, but this I actively did not like the people I was watching. Even the guest appearances all came off as caricatures and cartoons to me. I cannot with this movie. It was a struggle to get to the end of this movie. I just wanted to turn it off. But that was my opinion. I'll let Mark up.
So, so yeah, the theme of grooming was just way too much for me. And I mean, she even mentioned at one point that she was 28 and then corrected herself to 25. So I don't know if she is 28 or 25. But regardless, it's super weird. And if the gender roles were reversed, this movie would have been an outcry. So it's kind of hard to push that aside because that literally is the movie. And, you know, so I was bored to tears. I did not care about anything that was happening. I thought it was incredibly too long. I will say that Bradley Cooper was placed perfectly in this movie because he gave me a second wind to finish the movie. His scene was the only enjoyable part of the movie, and that was purely for him because he was just so outlandish. And I think I was just looking for anything to keep me going. I was actually engaged during those scenes. But outside of that, absolutely hated this movie.
All right. Well, on that note, no, I mean, I think you guys bring up excellent points. You know, and I was, yeah, I mean, saying to cast that aside, I mean, that's a lot
that's
to
tough.
cast aside. I mean, it's just watching it. I mean, right off the bat, because the girl doesn't look that old, so it's like, why couldn't
they
you
mentioned
just?
that.
Yeah, like why couldn't you just have made this about two high school kids?
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know, like why? And it like came up over and over and over again, and it's like none of this is like watering down my view or my opinion that like this is. And I love your point. I think it was Mark who said, you know, if the roles were reversed, you know, it would be even more cringy. So
Yeah,
I
tell me a 25-year-old dude walking around talking to a 15-year-old. Everyone's like,
yeah,
that's not weird at all. It's fine. It's whatever you make of it.
yeah. Yeah, so like I just it's beyond, you know, I mean, I say it's beyond me because I'm just thinking reasonably and logically, but the reality is that this is, you know, what Hollywood is, and this is what these, you know, certain individuals want to value, you know, who anyway, I don't want to get into that. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I mean, I thought it would, and also, Kevin, your point, that was another knock for me, was that the characters they're too inconsistent. Like at times they're likable, at times they're not. Like you can't really root for them because it makes it so hard to connect with them because they do, you know, cool things, then they do, you know, like just lousy things, you know, and they show great things about them, then they show these terrible things about them, but even not in a realistic way, but they are like caricatures, you know. So I found it, yeah, like I wasn't necessarily like rooting. What I was actually hoping that this was more of like La La Land, in the sense that you know, the two main characters, they were a part of each other's lives for a purpose for a short period of time, but then they end up going in separate ways. So I was actually kind of hoping that it was going to be that, like they just had this, you know, little friendship that, you know, never really materialized into a relationship or a romance. And then at the end, you just see that, well, yeah, obviously they weren't meant for each other, but they learned, or they grew from knowing each other for a time. But then he just, you know, went all in head first into, no, this is love and their romance, and they were meant for each other, and this or that, and it's like, you know.
Yeah, at her age, it's just interesting that she's stringing along this 15-year-old, and she's literally bouncing to anything that's just
Yeah.
batting, anyone that's looking her way, she's running to them.
Mhm.
And I understand, this is a love story and that's the point of it, but it's just like, yeah, I feel like she should have been going to those other people because this kid's 15.
Yeah.
So there was and I really I know you said what's his name, Cooper. I know you said his name first, but I think isn't Alana's the main character, no?
I,
I
I
think they're
think I
duo.
think it's shared. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's shared. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But
did
yeah, it's just, there was no point that I was invested at all in the story. I did not care what was happening. A part of me thought for a second that since they weren't, getting together as easy as, he was thinking it was going to be, I thought they were going to go to a point where she actually finds someone her own age and he finds someone his own age, and they're able to continue a friendship, seeing other people. I wished for anything else. I really
It,
did.
it 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 did seem like it was going that way when she started volunteering at the political
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Because at this point, this she was hanging out with the 15-year-old and the younger kids all the time. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe now they're gonna go. And I thought he was gonna find the girl at the end. I was rooting for that ending,
Yeah.
but it did not seem like it was gonna end like that.
well, and I think there was this intentional thing that he was doing, Paul Thomas Anderson, by creating characters that he tells us what their age is and what their circumstances are, but then he's written them in a way where it's like really nebulous, because she acts like a 15-year-old and he acts like a 25-year-old,
Yeah.
because he's got like multiple careers and like he's super responsible at
He's
least
an
with
entrepreneur.
yeah, he's an entrepreneur. And meanwhile, she like definitely does not have her life together at 25. I mean, I'm not one to judge. I don't think I did either, but I mean, she pushes it to an extreme. She's not even trying at one point until she kind of
Yeah.
gets that job in with the candidate. But so he like, and it's almost like he's saying, see, age is just a number. You can be 15 and seem older, or you can be 25 and seem younger, and kind of meet in the middle. Like it's okay. And not to put words in his mouth, but that's just the way it kind of came off to me by writing the characters, particularly in that way where the age is thrown out there, but then the maturity, the attitude, and everything else is just a toss up, and it's so nebulous.
Yeah, I would see what you're saying there, but when I feel like he nails it back to the age thing by our main character telling Alana that if it wasn't for me, you'd still be at a high school with high school kids taking pictures of high schoolers.
Yeah.
So once he brought that up again, I was like, oh, okay, so you are driving home the fact that this kid is young. All right, fair enough. Like
Mhm.
I had that, I noticed that he was doing things that were quote unquote more mature than her, and she looked like her life was a mess. But yeah, no, they quickly went back to that. Oh yeah, no, don't forget, you'd still be in high school if it wasn't for me. And I was
Yeah.
just like, oh God, all right, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Like, what 25-year-old hears that and go, yeah, man, he's right. Yeah, it was a tough watch, man. This was a tough watch.
I mean, I thought the dialogue, again, casting that aside, and I think the way that I did cast it aside was throughout the movie. I said, let me not jump to aside from the part where she like, and again, you don't see this. Her back is to the camera, but she like exposes herself to him. Um, Aside from that, they never really connect.
Mhm.
Like there's attempts to, and he wants to, and whatever, but they never really even so much as hold hands, apart from that. So I think what carried me through the whole time is going like, well, maybe it doesn't turn out this way, and I guess I just kind of held on to that hope, and so being able to kind of have that lingering and kind of seeing how it's going to unfold, but kind of putting it aside to focus on everything else, I think allowed me to analyze everything else that again for me proves, that again Paul Thomas Anderson is a great writer. I mean, I did at least, even if, like Kevin said, we don't necessarily like the characters, I did find them entertaining. I thought the dialogue was good. Um, Again, a lot of nostalgia that so Mark, I mean, one of the questions that I have for you guys, because Kevin, I don't know if you saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but for me, there are a lot of maybe not similarities, but at least points of comparison in the fact that they're set in a similar era. I mean, they're completely different stories, but they're set in a similar era. And it's two directors who we know have a certain level of competitiveness because they're on the same level, and they both write and direct. And so while they're two different movies, I thought there's a lot of similarities, not just in the time period, but also in the fact that, again, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is this story where you're just following these characters and a few days in their lives. And this was more than a few days, but it was kind of the same thing. You're just following these characters and what's happening, and all the nostalgia of that period combined with their ability to write dialogue and write scenes and direct. And so yeah, that was definitely in my mind a lot, which is funny because if you remember, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there was also a potential scene with with a pedo element, when Brad Pitt picks up the hitchhiker, and she's like trying to seduce him, and he's like, no, let me see your license, and he's like, no, you don't have it because you're under 18, so I'm not going to go to jail or whatever. So it's kind of funny that Quentin Tarantino, who's the one that's always getting nailed to a cross for being too violent or, using the N-word too much or whatever. Like, he's the one that actually shows restraint and is like, no, this is wrong. This character clearly doesn't go there because it's illegal, immoral, and whatever. But I thought that was interesting. But yeah, do you see anything of comparison there between those two?
I mean, yes, I do, but for me, I'm heavily biased, and I'm Tarantino always. And I think Tarantino's dialogue is hand over fist better than PTA. But then I haven't seen too many of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies because I find them boring.
Really?
Yeah, There Will Be Blood had a couple funny scenes, but I don't think they were meant to be funny. I just found them funny. But other than that, it was just a story about a crazy old man. I was just like, man. Punch Drunk Love was okay. It was nice to see Adam Sandler in a movie where he wasn't, being an idiot. But it was just like, it was whatever for me. I was told to watch The Master, and I did. Bored to tears. I haven't seen Inherent Vice. I don't want to. Phantom Thread looks nothing like something I would ever watch. And I only watched Licorice. Yeah, well, I've never seen Boogie Nights. But in Licorice Pizza, I mean, we're only watching it. I only watched it because of this. All the trailers I saw, none of it made me go, wow, I really want to see that. I am a stickler for titles, and if a title has nothing to do with the movie, then that just dumbfounds me even more. And I don't know what Licorice Pizza is, and I feel like it's code word for an older woman going after a younger male.
Maybe it's code word for Pizzagate.
I don't know, like something. I don't know what it means, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm supposed to know.
Yeah.
I feel like titles for movies are always purposeful in some way. This, I have no idea how it fits into anything. I don't think the
So
character's dialogue was interesting. I felt it was clunky. The fact that Alana volunteers one day and she's like ready to die for this guy, it just didn't
Yeah.
make sense for me.
Mhm.
She didn't really seem that type. So all of a sudden for her doing that, it didn't make sense. So I don't know. It was hard for me
so
to compare, but the fact that you're bringing up that Tarantino X that out it makes me love him even more because I remember that scene and I remember him
look,
doing that.
Yeah.
real quick, licorice pizza is like slang for vinyl records.
Don't care. Still has nothing to do with
I
the
know.
movie.
No, that's why I
Okay.
saw.
No, that's good to know. I was gonna ask you guys like if you had any idea because I had no idea what that had to do with anything. But
But I
go
want to
ahead.
say something real fast
Yeah.
on what you said because I haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but so far, like at least what you said, like Tarantino is like batting 100% for me of all the movies I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And like what Mark said, I'm like Thomas Anderson, maybe 3 out of 4 movies I like that I've seen that he's, maybe three movies
Yeah.
I've thought were decent. In comparison wise, when I was watching this movie, it reminded me a lot of American Beauty,
Mm.
Mhm.
where it got a lot of acclaim. I finally watched it. People hyped it up to me. I'm like, all right, I watched it. It looked pretty, and I apparently it was supposed to be something deep and different that we were seeing. I didn't like that movie either. I was just like, all right, this is just more. I don't get it. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And that floating paper bag was not deep
Mm-hmm.
in American Beauty, and I just felt like that's how I felt watching this movie. I felt like this could be American Beauty's cousin of a movie.
Well, it was a plastic bag, first of
Oh
all.
yeah, plastic bag. My bad. I blocked it. I blocked it out.
But no, I mean Paul Thomas Anderson. I will say I did like There Will Be Blood. What's fascinating to me is that now through my Instagram account, I'm like following all these movie bloggers and reviewers and all this, dude. And I keep seeing coming up time and time again, one of my favorite movies or one of the best movies, The Master. And I was like, what? I was like, I need to go. I mean, I know it was an incredible performance by what's his face, Joaquin Phoenix, but that's
Philip
all I
Seymour Hoffman.
remember.
No,
Inherent
it's
Vice,
Philip.
like
Is it Philip
Yeah,
Seymour Hoffman?
it's Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix.
yeah.
Oh,
Inherent Vice, like don't watch it. It's nothing. I love Punch Drunk Love. That's the one that I do love. Like I love Punch Drunk Love. But also, dude, surprisingly enough, I recently watched Phantom Thread. It's good, man. It's really good. You should check it out.
Is
And
it a love movie?
it's twisted. It's a twisted movie. I can't give anything away. But it's
Alright.
Daniel Day-Lewis, so it's
I
like
know, and I enjoy him because I mean
yeah.
he really gets into his characters.
Yeah. But yeah, the other thing was, you mentioned Bradley Cooper, and he definitely was awesome in this movie. Like his character was so crazy, but so good. I mean, even the way he walked was like hilarious, bro. Every time he was on on the screen, man, it was so good. His haircut, the clothes he was wearing.
His
But
shirt was open. He had like a mound of hair on his chest.
yeah. Like his freaking temper, oh my gosh, it was so funny, so over the top. He's like pointing that gas thing at the guy with with a lighter. He's like, this is
it's
my
my
house.
nozzle.
Dude, it was hilarious. But there's a scene in the trailer where he like it almost makes it seem like he catches up to them, or like he finds out about the car and then like flips out. And I was waiting for that scene the whole time, and I was like, give me more Bradley Cooper. And it never happened, so certainly that was disappointing. But something else, I mean, maybe you guys, because you maybe weren't that into this one, maybe you didn't pay as much attention, but I watched this YouTuber that does like really cool stuff about movies, and so he did a thing about acting, a video montage about acting, and one he said that, oh no, actually it was about close-ups, like camera close-ups and why we should, but listen, but he talked about the amazing acting, and his example was the facial close up and the acting in that scene when he takes her to like his agent or whatever, who's that older lady.
Okay. Yeah.
Dude, that lady like acted her balls off,
She
man.
did. She did. Oh,
Dude.
and I appreciated that because that little time that she had, she absolutely commanded
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I don't. There's not a lot of people that can pull that off. So when you're
Yeah.
sitting there watching someone a close up and it's like, hey, you got to sell this. If they're not selling it, it starts to become a little cringe for me. And I'm like, back away. Why are you so close to them? For her, I was in the moment where she was just looking at
Yeah.
fencing and naming all these things. And when she says Portuguese and she said something in Spanish, I'm like, that's not even Portuguese. I
Yeah.
was dying laughing, like,
Yeah.
Dude, and like the phone call that she takes, and
Yeah.
all she says is no,
No.
no, no, and then a final thing. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And like, dude, that lady was acting her balls off. That's all I can say. Like it was. I was hooked on her.
Yeah.
I agree with Kevin. I mean, our boy Tarantino is 9 for 9. You know, he's killing it, and so nothing ever bad to say about
And
him.
even if you don't like the movie, if you can say, man, it was too gory for me, or the story, I didn't agree with it, you can still sit and go from beginning to end all of those movies, and it doesn't feel like you're slogging through mud. It doesn't feel like, this is laborious. No, it's not like that. It's like, man, maybe you feel uncomfortable. Maybe they're saying the N-word too much. Well, okay, maybe that's a part of it, but you're still immersed in the movie, even though you might not like it. This one, I wasn't immersed until Bradley Cooper, and I was like, oh, and that whole time when he came charging up the hill, and I'm like, oh my God, how did he know that they poured water? And he's like, I ran out of gas. I died laughing because he was like, I had that thing's got a full tank of gas. I'm not an idiot. Like it was just hilarious. And like I knew that when they went back and started bashing his car, I'm like, okay, they're gonna totally run out of gas. And then the whole going backwards, that whole all of that was great to me. And as soon as it cut back to daytime, I was like, all right, that was fun.
So
I got right back into it.
So you didn't think it was funny, like the guy that was married to the Japanese lady?
Oh, I was saying that guy. Oh my God, John Michael Higgins as Jerry Frick.
Yeah.
It's funny, like seeing how cancel culture is just so strong. I'm watching a white man make fun of a Japanese accent, and I was like, oh man, he's gonna get a lot of flack for that. So I didn't laugh because I'm used to the times where you can easily get canceled for anything. So like maybe 10 years ago I would have laughed, but this time I was just like,
I didn't laugh at him doing his little imitation, but they would keep speaking to Japanese to him, and he's like, "Oh, this is what she thinks." And then at the end, one of his final parts, they're like, "Oh, what's she saying?" He goes, "I don't know. I don't speak Japanese."
Yeah,
that killed me.
If you look at the women, they're disgusted the whole time, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
But it was just so strange. I guess because I don't know his character, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to laugh or if he really was trans. I don't know. It was
hilarious. And then what was funny was the women understood English, but he didn't speak Japanese.
Yeah, that's true.
But a couple cool things was, did you guys see our boy John C. Reilly?
Yeah.
He was a split second. I had to go, wait, was that him?
I didn't even see him. That voice, you recognize it instantly.
Yeah. I feel like he had a bigger role and it just got cut.
Probably. But then, so I didn't know this. To me, the main actor who played Gary Valentine, Cooper Hoffman, was just a newcomer. Like I hadn't heard anything about him. I didn't know anything about him. So I'm just watching this, and I know that Paul Thomas Anderson did quite a few movies with Philip Seymour Hoffman. I didn't even know the kid's name was Cooper Hoffman. I didn't know anything about him. So I'm just watching this, bro, and I'm like, man, this kid reminds me of Philip Seymour Hoffman. But it was just like, I don't know, like Paul Thomas just like cast a perfect kid who like picks up his essence or whatever. Like I was just like, wow, it's eerie. And then I find out after I looked it up, that was actually his son. I was
Yeah.
like, dang, that is crazy. That really like surprised me in
I
a
will
cool,
say,
in a cool way.
like the kid has a presence where like I know like this is his first movie, I believe, but like I felt like I'm like, man, where have I seen this guy before? Like he's like he has that look where I feel like I've seen him in like a dozen movies.
But you don't think that, like, take his character, like everything about him, like the way he spoke, the way that he was an actor, and like he was a showman, the way he
Ugh.
was an entrepreneur, and like, all the, like, if you took that character and the story was something different, like, you don't think you would have liked that character? Like, at the end of the day, even the things you didn't like about him, he was 15,
Yeah.
so it's kind of
Ugh.
all understandable for from his end.
Yeah, but you're asking if that character wasn't in this movie, so that you remove everything from this movie, like would I like the guy? Probably. Well, it's this movie I didn't like.
Well, or just if the circumstances were different, like if it was like a super bad thing where they're going after high school girls and
Yeah.
or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was a fun character, even if I
Yeah.
like
100%.
well written and stuff.
Yeah, and it was nice to just see him kind of adapt and how he was listening, even though he's watching the girl of his dreams with someone else. He picks up on the whole pinball thing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna, capitalize on that." So yeah, that was, I mean, that was awesome to see, and you always, I feel like that's something that we always strive for, the next hustle. But the fact that that became the reason why she liked him was just like yawn to me. It really honestly truly killed it for me, man. But you have to understand, I also don't like love stories. I don't care for them. I feel like I'm good with love. So yeah, I mean, if this was something else, like he was doing this because his mom was sick or so, I don't know, anything else, and yeah, absolutely 100%. But dude, I mean, at the point of taking everything away, we don't even have licorice pizza. We got uncooked dough, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm looking at it.
We can't rule out the possibility. I mean, if you go back and watch the movie and analyze her character further, I don't think we can rule out the possibility that she is mentally challenged. and that's
and that's why she's hanging out with teenagers.
I mean, she is. I mean, she acts crazy at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of comical, but kind of not. As a way to kind of reason with what's going on here. But
and see, that's another thing that kind of doesn't, like, that's not the norm. Like normally women are more mature than guys. So I mean, the fact that they're spitting on the head, yeah, that's cool and all. Yeah. But again, I kind of, maybe if he was 18, I wouldn't have felt so bad. Yeah. But like, why did he have to be a 1'5"?
Yeah.
Even if he was 17, maybe.
Why couldn't they just say teen? Maybe she was 20. If she was 20, it's her birthday. We start on it's her 20th birthday. She just exit the teens of her life. I'd be like, you know what? Okay. But dude, she literally says 28. Like, is she 28 now? Like, why would you say that? Did she could have said 24. She could have said 23, but she went older. Yeah. So is she 28? Because that makes it even worse. So
I kind of took that in that scene as like she was feeling out if Bradley Cooper was like interested in her, so maybe she wanted to appear even older. That's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of how I took it. I think she was actually 25, but in that moment, just maybe said that. There were some great shots, and there's one that I definitely want to highlight, which is when he, which was a crazy scene when he, like, the cops just come in and arrest him. Mm-hmm. And they drag him to jail. He doesn't even ask any questions. He just goes off to jail with them. Well, he gets dragged to jail. But then when they uncuff him and they release him basically, and she's outside the window saying, "Come on, what's taking you so long?"
Yeah.
And he eventually goes out and they embrace. And you're seeing all this through the reflection on the jail doors.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was like
Yeah.
masterful. Like again, Paul Thomas Anderson for me is a very conflicting individual because I see his genius, even though his movies are often unconventional and often, have a side of darkness, and they're very twisted, which from things I've heard, I mean, I think he like dated Fiona Apple for a long time, and I think things that came out about that relationship and just all the drugs and like coke that he would do and like drinking, it was like crazy. So he is a weird individual because you see him in interviews or you see him talking and he doesn't seem that way at all. So I think there's a lot of an edge and darkness to this guy, which comes out in his movies. But I can't deny, man, that like this guy is, in my opinion, at least, when you see what he's able to do behind the camera and even the writing, that it may not be what we like or it may not even resonate, but there is something that he does, with character development and exploring some really dark things in characters that is fascinating to me, and really like shows like strokes of genius from
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. I, yeah, no, I can't. I mean, yeah, he'll have a couple nice shots. I remember there were some nice shots in There Will Be Blood, but at the end of the day, like I'm always feeling like I missed something, or I'm not smart enough, or there's just a lot of underlying things that I'm just not. I'm very nice. I don't know. And after this movie, he's kind of being put on my list of guys that probably have some skeletons in their closet, because I don't know how you could write this story and be completely okay with that. So yeah, it's just I can't. There's been nothing that has stood out for me for him.
There's something that I want to kind of bring up that it was something in this movie made me think about it, and it's something a little bit more personal, a little bit, but I just kind of wanted. I'm gonna even at least try to articulate it, although I think it's a little hard to articulate. But see if you guys maybe understand or can relate. There was a short scene where Alana is like sitting in her, like laying in her backyard with her sister,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they're getting high, and she asks her sister, she's like, do you think it's weird that I hang out with Gary and his friends all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And her sister, I think, answers her, but I don't know, for some reason, and I wasn't high or drunk or anything, but still something about that scene and like that question, um it just made me think that personally for me, I don't know, I don't really, I recently in another conversation or with a friend, I just found myself realizing that like in conversation or in moments with people, like I'm always the one like asking the questions, like
Mm-hmm.
asking them about themselves, like how they're doing, or with some exceptions, like Kevin, always asks me and stuff. But in a lot of other conversations, like I'm always the one like engaging and like asking people questions,
Mm-hmm.
and like no one ever asks me, like not only like how am I doing or anything like that, but like, people don't really ask me like, hey, how's the podcast going? Like, do you enjoy it? Like, what do you like about it? Or even just like details or like personal things about my life or like my personality.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, watching that scene, it really made me think about that. And I don't know, I guess I was like, why is that? Or like, what I don't understand that dynamic in my life. Why like people maybe feel they can approach me that way, or maybe I'm just not that interesting. But something about the intimacy of them having that conversation and just knowing that like they they were so connected that they knew what was going on in each other's lives, and she could ask her for her opinion about decisions she was making and like things she was doing. I mean, like, I don't know, it just seemed there was a level of intimacy there that I guess I just recognized maybe is not common in my dynamic with relationships around me.
Well, I will say the reason why you probably haven't experienced anything like that is because I really truly feel in that scene, the reason why she's bringing it up is because she's hoping that this girl tells her that it's weird, because she even admits
Mm,
that it's weird,
mm,
but she didn't get that. She just got a excuse my language, a half-assed answer of, yeah, no, it's whatever you make of it.
mm,
That's not really an answer, you know. And I feel like if you would have came to me and said, hey man, pretend you're Alana and I'll pretend like you're the friend. If you came to me, hey man, is it really weird that I hang out with Gary and his friends? I'd be like, yeah, bro, and I've been thinking about that for a while now. It is really weird, you know. I would have straight up 100% said that. The fact that that didn't happen and she responded with, well, I think it's weird. You know, I feel like she was trying to get validation to, confirm that what she's feeling is in fact weird, because I mean, that's how she started it, by saying, I'm too old for you. But for some reason, she still stuck around. She still went to that, to the restaurant and met him. So, there was just, you see that she's conflicted, but she's just still continuing to do it. So I don't think you've had that need where you needed validation on something that you're doing that's pretty crazy, and you want to make sure that other people know that it's crazy. So you want to make, hey, I don't think, because I will say, I don't know your interactions daily, but you probably don't have people that come to you often. But again, I don't think you're doing anything so crazy that anyone has to go, hey Juan, why are you doing that?
mm,
I don't know. Maybe
But
I'm thinking in extremes.
but to what Juan's real life thing that he brought up was like about not having that thing is like I think we all get into like patterns and roles in people's lives,
mm,
and when you're always the person who's asking whatever, you just become accustomed to like it's sort of like if you go out with your bigger brother, he's always going to pay, so you just get used to that. You go out with people, they're always going to ask about your life, so you always share it, and then you don't get used to you develop a role that you're not asking back,
mm,
and it sort of becomes like this one quote like, well, who warms the sun, you know what I mean, the sun is always given out, but who warms the sun type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like
mm,
it and because I experience it too sometimes, but it like part of it is we're to blame also because we allow that kind of interpersonal relationship to develop where we're giving and asking, but nobody's asking back, but we don't even really require it, we're just giving until one
mm.
day we're noticing, hey, that person never asked me.
Yeah.
And when I worked at the pharmacy, I did a really cool like social experiment. I was like, I'm not gonna. I always say hi to everyone. I'm not gonna say hi to anyone until they say hi to me. Like, not ask me about work to say hi. Right? Some people I didn't talk to for 2 hours. One girl who I was really close with, I didn't talk to for like 12 days.
Mm.
I was like, all, all she has to do is say hi to me. And like, she finally came up to me. She goes, "Are you mad at me?" I'm like, "Oh no, thank God you finally talked to me." And my friend Marcus, I had told him about it, so he knew about it. I was like, you did not, you saw me, you would never say hi. You didn't say, I'm like, it took you 12 days for you just to go, like, hey, what's up, Kev? That's all I required. Like, even a good
Yeah,
morning, like, hey, what's up? And
yeah. She's used
and
to
you
it.
just realize, yeah, you just develop like I fostered it and developed these like roles in people's lives. Like all the world's a stage, and that was my role. I was just asking everyone, always greeting people, being, and I was like, oh, I want to see when you flip it, you'll notice that like we're the people who caused like that to happen because we've
Yeah,
allowed it, and we're never like, hey, you never asked me about my life, bro.
yeah.
That's good, man. That's really insightful. Yeah, that really connects, because even the way that came up with a friend was like, I was like asking him questions, and I think he was like, I invited him over to like for dinner, and I think he was like, or he made a comment like, "Are you gonna just ask me a bunch of questions or something like that?" And I was like, you can ask me questions too. Like I'm happy to answer and tell you things about my life. Like this can be two-way, but it's like it is crazy what you're saying, man. That like it is, you do find yourself in a role that it's like, unless I'm reaching out and trying to connect with people, like people don't connect. And I guess for me, I guess at times it just makes it feel, I feel like, is it me? Is it that people are not interested in connecting with me? So I have to assume that role in order to connect with people.
Yeah.
Which I don't know,
but see, yeah, and you have to understand the way that you feel how that's missing in your life. You can honestly turn that around for others. Like you're probably not doing something that someone else is going, how come that person never does that for me? It's really just the continuity of it. If I'm just always doing it, yeah, I might realize when you're not doing like it. When you stop asking me questions, I'm gonna realize it, but it might not be for for a couple hours, couple days, couple months,
yeah,
because it's just what the norm.
yeah,
Before I had kids, I felt like I was the only one that was actively trying to hang out with people. Oh, hey, let's go do something, and I never felt like, no one calls me and goes, hey man, let's go hang out. But it's just, I'm the one that's actively going
mm-hmm.
out. So it's, I don't know. It gets to the point where you either have to, because I don't really feel like it. Man, I still don't think it's changed. I mean, now I have a kid, so I never go out. But I really feel like that doesn't really change. You kind of just have to learn to adapt to it, because I mean, after this conversation, me and Kevin might start asking you questions for a couple days, couple weeks. Well, Kevin's already good, so I'll use just myself as an example. Like I might start going, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And it's going to trail off, and it's going to stop, and it's not going to continue like you would continue doing. But and I think that's why we also pick our friends, because they fill those holes that we, know we might not be good in. Like I'm not really the best at. I'm the best at saying, "Hey, let's hang out," but I'm not the best at saying, "Hey, man, how you doing?" So having people around me that I know are going to actively say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I tend to, fill my life in with people like that. So yeah, I think, I absolutely believe 100% that, you're not getting what you're giving, but I feel like, unfortunately, that's the world, man. And that's the world we live in. Cause you're going to, if you really list it all out, you're going to find things that you're definitely not being reciprocated on, that you're giving out 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The relational dynamic.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, to get back to the movie, do you know the guy? You know the guy that played the politician? Do you know who that is?
Yeah, that's Benny Safdie.
Yeah, director of Uncut Gems and Good Time, which
Yeah,
I still need to see Good Time.
Good Time is very good. It's funny, man. Safdie, Benny, I guess I'll just call him Benny. I don't know why, but his features are just so piercing to me. His eyes,
yeah, he's an
lips,
odd-looking guy. He's an odd.
It's not even that he's odd. It's just that, I don't know, everything on him just like, it just sticks out. And I feel like if he was Waldo and you put him in a book, I would easily spot him. No, seriously, like I feel like, dude, his hairstyle on this, I just felt like it was just so strong.
Yeah.
And I felt like he had an aura about him. I felt like he was filmed with a different camera. But that's it. In all the movies that he's been in and where he's been on screen, I don't know what it is, but it always feels that way.
Well, I agree. And it's so his hair is one. He has like big eyes that are like, you follow his eyes.
Yeah.
But then his eyes don't move that much.
They're piercing though.
Yeah. Then he has, I mean, I'm not insulting the guy, but he kind of has like a big nose. It kind of looks like, it's kind of like a Muppet nose.
Yeah.
And then he's like oddly tall too. Because like I kept seeing him in the suit, and he like, even it didn't like suit him. In a way. So yeah, I get, but it was like something that like you couldn't take your eyes off of him because you're at the same time like trying to figure out what am I looking at here? Yeah.
I felt like he was like the whole movie that he was on screen. I feel like he was one step away from heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
Like he just, I don't know. It looked like he was about to just bust out in the biggest sweat possible and just uncontrollable, but it never happened. I don't know. It was just so weird. Every time he's on screen, I don't know what it.
Yeah. Like he looked like one of, there's people that like it's their hair or something, but they always look wet, That's what he looked like.
That's what it is. Like, yo, somebody get this dude a towel, man. He's about to be soaking wet.
It's like he just got out of a pool and just threw that suit on and said, "Let's do this scene."
Benny, you're soaking wet. Show me water. Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I don't see any. Yeah, no, it's crazy, but no, it was interesting. Like when he popped up, I went, "Oh, it's Benny," and I was just like, man. He is for some reason. He's just like, I don't know if he's just his acting is commanding the presence of my eyes. But every time he was on screen, I'm like focused on him. Where's he going? What's he doing?
Well, and then his voice is like so pleasant and soothing. And he does have like he even has like a calming persona.
Yeah.
Odd guy.
I think to me, like one of my favorite scenes in the movie was I just call it the gay dinner.
Mm-hmm.
When they start talking and she's just sitting there, but then they get really tight on their faces while him and Matthew are talking.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so intense and and I felt a little uncomfortable being in the middle of the conversation. I'm like, wow. I'm like, and it was really good. I'm like, and his features really popped because that camera was right on his face.
Yeah, it was really good acting in that scene.
And that takes me back to another part why I didn't like this movie is that Alana's so excited. I mean, she's running to this guy because I would think that she's, infatuated with him in some way that's not just like, oh, this is a really good dude. And so she comes running and now she's being bombarded or not bombarded, but now she's being blindsided by this date that, she was not at all expecting to be a part of. And she's being sent to take his boyfriend home. And then now she's like, oh, well, that didn't work out. I guess I'll go to Gary. It was just, I was just like, oh my gosh, she's not, I don't care. I hope she gets hit by a car running to go find this dude. Like it was so silly.
And you know what? As you say that, Mark, I do think there is something to what you were saying about her being the main character.
Yeah,
I think that's actually pretty insightful. If you look at the movie poster, she's the main thing in the movie poster. And if you look at it too, the movie poster is her really big, surrounded by all these men. So I think there's a feminist thing going on here where what you're describing, that she's like all these men, right? Because she tried Sean Penn.
Yeah,
Bradley Cooper.
They were all interested. They were all
exactly. They were all interested, but they were not good guys. So she ended up settling for the 15-year-old who seemed more emotionally mature than those guys, but who actually also like didn't even treat her that well, because as soon as there was a more attractive girl at the pinball tournament, he was on her like white on rice.
Yeah, everything that he was, I mean, it was clear that everything that he was interested in was sexually. Because, I mean, that girl said, oh, has he asked you for a hand job yet? Like, he's going around asking for hand jobs. So he's obviously a horny little teenager, you know? Yeah. So, again, there's nothing for us to root about. Like, oh, I don't really care if he gets his jimmies wet. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we hit on it here after our discussion and our analysis. I think we hit on it.
Well, then I know what I'm ready to do.
Well, listen, one more thing. If nothing else, this movie gave us an amazing line and an amazing word that I want to use at the end of every single episode from this point on forevermore, which is when he's auditioning and doing running through some lines or whatever. And then they cut, and the guy that cuts goes, "Cut a Rooski." Dude, I love that. Cutarooski.
Well, I'm glad you found the silver lining for this movie, bro. Cutarooski. All right. So
Yeah.
you got to remember
I think
that.
that was the casting director, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Tim Conway Jr.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, so I guess I want to make a plea, which will fall on deaf ears.
Who are you pleading to, us or the audience?
Hollywood. My plea.
Okay.
My
Bro,
plea.
those aren't deaf ears. Those ears
I
are
know.
non-existent, my friend.
But dude, my plea is to Hollywood, to filmmakers, saying like, stop pushing pedophilia on us. Just make good movies. Like, dude, it's twisted, it's sick, it's taken away the joy of watching film. I mean, it's incredible that we've just started this podcast and already we've done like 4 or 5 movies or something like that all had to do with pedophilia. Like, it's insane. It's insane at this point.
Do you know where the fault lies in your plea? Like, they believe this was a good movie.
Yeah.
It got 3 Academy Award nominations, like Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. So you're saying make good movies? They're like, oh, we are.
Yeah.
That's like asking, McDonald's, hey, make health food. We are. Here's a salad and a burger.
Yeah. Dude, the trailer is playing right now on IMDb, and like, there's other scenes that weren't in this movie. There's a scene where a girl runs into a glass door.
Yes, I saw that.
Like,
I saw there where Bradley Cooper like hits the 2 cars. It looks like they're in a used car dealership.
Yeah.
I saw that.
That's frustrating. But anyway, I mean, even with that included, in my opinion, at least, there was still so much, I guess, to separate the content from the actual filmmaking, I guess. It was masterful, and I did enjoy it more than you guys, as far as the dialogue, the characters, the plot. I did enjoy a lot of it. So for me, although you guys did talk me back a little bit, I was gonna give it a little bit higher than coming into it, but after our discussion, I'm gonna come down a little bit, but I'm gonna say 2.5. 2.5 little Jerry's on our scale of 1 to 3.
Who's going next, me or Mark?
That's you, bro.
Okay. So, I was left not liking this movie, as I stated. I still have one main unanswered question, which I didn't ask, but I have no idea how much time passed in this movie, because a lot of things happened. I don't know if it was a year. I don't know if it was like 3 months. It was crazy, but I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the story. I couldn't look past the pedophilia. The name of this movie is Licorice Pizza. That is in the form of a circle, so I will give it a 0. Its own licorice pizza.
Finally, at least someone's tying the damn title into this movie.
Rating. But I would never watch this movie, and I would never suggest for anyone to watch this movie.
Well, Bing Bong, one little Jerry. I will not be watching movies that deal with older people preying on younger people. It doesn't matter if it's male to male, female to female, male to female, female to male. It doesn't matter. Post-op, pre-op. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you have someone with a younger person that is not the age of consent, it doesn't even have to be the age of consent. Why they got to be 18, 19? Just make them 20 years old. Just make them 20 years old. Let's take the word teen out of it. But no, we still want to, glorify this whole, teenagers can explore their sexuality and blah, blah, blah. All right, great. Yeah, no, it doesn't need to be in movie form. That's one little Jerry for me.
Dude, the crazy thing is, like, I feel like we need to address this at some point, because like I said, we've done so. So what I want to say is, I know I speak for myself and probably for you guys too, is we don't know a lot about these movies. when we pick them.
Right.
Like I just knew of Licorice Pizza. I know Paul Thomas Anderson. I know that it got critical acclaim. So I was like, I want to see that. I don't necessarily look up the story or whatever before it. And I know you guys don't either. But the fact that we've done, several of these already, I feel like we need to say something before people start going like, oh, those are the guys that review the pedo movies.
Well, I mean, in our defense, everyone else is rating them too, so at least we have that to follow.
crazy, man. But I did want to say, because nobody mentioned this one, but it is probably his most famous movie is Magnolia, which I've never seen, but I do want to see it at some point just to see what all the fuss is about.
Isn't that another one where it's like an older person with a younger person?
No, I don't know. I'm
thinking American Dream.
Or maybe you're thinking of Steel Magnolias.
Steel Man, that's what it is, maybe.
You want to know when I was going through his movies, I saw Magnolia. I was like, oh, I remember liking Tom Cruise in that. But this whole time I was thinking of Vanilla Sky. Till you just mentioned Magnolia. I'm like, oh, that's not even the movie I was thinking about. I liked.
I don't know. They say he was great in it. They say Tom Cruise was great in it.
In what? Steel Magnolia?
In Magnolia, yeah.
Oh, Magnolia. Wait, he's in Magnolia or Steel Magnolia?
Magnolia.
Okay.
He has a small part in it, right? Yeah.
I don't know. Never seen it. Don't know much about it. I think it's I don't know. I think it's one of the main roles. I think, or it might be like I think it's maybe like a Bradley Cooper type role.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Gotcha.
But all right. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation here tonight, and hopefully we can avoid the perversion that is Hollywood.
Listen, man, it doesn't look like it's possible unless we're picking PBS movies.
Yeah, I
Hallmark Originals.
Oh yeah, no PBS. I mean Sesame Street these days. But I probably should have gone with my original pick, but I can't do 3 hours right now with school and stuff. But at some point, because I really want to watch that movie because it's supposed to be really good. But anyway, how about we cut a rooski and save some for the next time?
He fit it in. All right, I'd love to hear it.
All right, let's put this pie to bed.
Oh my.
Later.
Later.
Love you.